So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on making this layout. This is about my brother and his girlfriend, and it was just a quick nothing moment after dinner, but I just loved the way that he was looking at her, and so I really wanted to capture that moment on a page. And the technique that we're showing today, which I'm super excited about, is an oil pastel resist. So let's get started. I'm gonna take an oil pastel, and I'm actually gonna use white, and we're not gonna see it at first, but trust me when I say it's going to be really cool. And I am working on watercolor paper, and the reason for that is because I am going to use a lot of water, and watercolor paper is just not going to buckle the way that other traditional papers would. You could certainly try this out on cardstock and see whether you care about whether it's buckling. So I've added some red, and I'm going to go ahead and add some more little circles and dots and designs. You're just doodling and having fun, and can you see how imperfect and just not even, I'm not trying, I'm not thinking, I'm coloring. I'm going to color in those little white circles. And in fact, you don't have to even color with the same thing. The nice thing about having many different tones of the same color is that you get some interesting little color variation when you work in there. And these oil pastels are just smooth as silk. If you want, you can actually smush them around with your fingers so that you don't even get the drawing lines. It just smooths everything out. So the next step is I'm going to be working with some watercolors, and I have a tiny, tiny, tiny little box here of watercolors, and I travel with this box all the time. Now it does come with a water brush, and I want to show you how that works. I've put some water into the bottom half, and I'm simply taking the cap off, and I'm going to screw this on. And at first you're going to think, gosh, this isn't screwing on. But that's because this is designed so that it screws on what you would think is the wrong way. And I've gotten some black watercolor on me. No problem. Watercolor is probably the easiest paint to clean up of anything. It's one of the reasons it's great for kids and for travel. So then, once this is on, I can simply pull the cap off, the tip is there, and it's ready to use. But today, I'm actually going to do something different, which is I'm going to use a regular paintbrush because I want a nice, huge, wide brush. So I have a very wet brush, and I've sprayed my watercolors with some water to just get them juicy. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I don't care that the watercolor's flowing into each other. I'm just grabbing 3 colors at the same time. And I'm adding some water to spread that color around, and I'm going back into my mixed up 3 colors. It just is really pretty, and can you see, this is why it's called an oil pastel resist, because the oil pastel is resisting the watercolor. Very, very cool. So once I have this on, and I'm not going to fuss with it too much, I like the energy of something that's a little bit free. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to create the rest of the layout. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut my title. So what I've done is I've simply taken a pen or a marker, and in my own handwriting, I've written out my title, This Moment. Then I'm going to take it over to my electronic die cutter, and I'm going to place it into the scanning mat. And then I'm going to place it into the machine, and I'm going to feed it into the machine. Oops, there you go. And once it's fed into the machine, I'm going to choose Scan, and then I'm going to choose to scan it to cut data. That just means I want to save it. Okay, I'm going to press Start, and the machine is basically going to take this in and scan it. And you don't need a computer or anything else. It's completely just standalone. The machine does it all by itself. You want to make sure you have enough room behind the machine as well as in front. Once this is scanned in, the machine is going to process it, and it does take a moment or two. If you did a lot of designs on a page, it would take a little bit longer. If you just have one, then it's going to be a little bit faster. And I'm thinking about what I'm going to cut this out of, and I'm actually going to use these strips because this moment is actually not that long. So I know that it's going to fit pretty easily onto a very skinny piece of paper. And that's a great way also to use up scraps. So great, this has already scanned in, and I'm going to choose, I have several scan options. This is an outline scan. This is to do on both sides, and this is just a line scan. So I'm going to choose the double outline, and I'm going to go ahead and just select in right like this. I'm going to hit Save. It's going to ask me whether I want to save it to the machine or to the USB. I'm going to say I want to save it to the machine. It's going to tell me that it's doing it, and then I can say, it's going to say that's what the file name is, so I can go and find it, and I can cut it later. Luckily, I happen to have already cut one out, and so you can see it right here, and it is just so delicate, the detail on this, and it's exactly my handwriting, which I think is super awesome. I used to do this all the time with a craft knife, and it just took forever. So let's build our layout really quickly. So what you can see here is I have a finished dried one right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I am going to figure out, I want my circle up here, I'm gonna place my photo down and see how that automatically creates a focus on the photo, just that red circle, which I think is really nice. I'm gonna add my title, which again, design-wise, I'm picking up the red from the background and putting it in here. Now you'll notice on my finished piece that I have these two little strips of paper. What's the reason for that design-wise? Well, if you look at it, what this does is it helps to ground the circle, which is otherwise floating. You always want to find a way to ground elements, and the proximity between these two strips and this certainly grounds it. Now, if you are not a sort of painty, messy person, you can definitely use pattern paper for the background on something like this. I want to show you two other layouts that also use this idea of the resist. This is one, and you can see that all I did with an oil pastel is go up and down in a little zigzag, and again, over with watercolor, nice and messy. And this one over here, it's the same zigzag, but this time it's in color.